Are you new to lifting and eventually want to learn how to do this? Or are you a more advanced lifter who just wants to add in a new leg workout to the routine? Either way, you're in the right place because I'm going to take you through one of my OG leg workouts today that has both the beginner and advanced versions of each exercise so that anyone who's looking to grow their legs and their glutes could do this workout. This workout should take you about 45 to 60 minutes in total. And if you want to add on a lower body focused warm up, I'm going to pin the link to one in the description below so you guys could check that out. All right, so that's enough talking. Let's get into this workout. All right, guys, so for my more advanced lifters, we're gonna be starting with the barbell back squat. So before I actually do my back squats with the highest amount of weight that I'm gonna be performing them with, I always like to make sure that I start with about 2 to 3 sets of warm-ups. So the first warm-up that I do is just gonna be with the bar for about 5 to 10 reps. From there, I'm gonna go in small percentages and kind of work my way up. So let's say that my working weight was gonna be like 135, where there's a 45 on each side because my barbell weighs about 45 pounds. I'm gonna do my 5 to 10 reps with the bar only. Then from there, I'm probably gonna put about a 25 on each side, do another 5 reps, and then I might even add another 10 on each side and do like 2 reps before I get to that full 135 weight. So I'm gonna give you guys 2 cues that could help you with your back squat. One of them is that you wanna keep your eyesight slightly glanced up, meaning that when I'm doing my back squat, I don't wanna be looking down at the ground because a lot of times that's going to draw my upper body down and towards the floor. If you keep that eyesight just glanced up a little bit, then it'll help you keep your chest upright and it might make it easier to even get the barbell up and get yourself back to standing. The second thing I always do with my back squat is pretend like I'm spreading the floor with my feet. So I try to think outward tension of my feet without actually physically moving my feet. And what that does is it just helps me feel all of this engagement from my lower body. And it's so much easier for me to get up and out of my squat. For those of you who are new to lifting, we're gonna start with a dumbbell goblet squat. I love starting my clients off with goblet squats because it lets them work out the kinks of their squat pattern before we add a ton more weight to it with our barbell back squat and a lot more complexity. I recommend working with this exercise for about 2 to 6 weeks or until you're easily able to do 10 reps with a 45-pound weight because the barbell will weigh 45 pounds. So it's a great way to gauge if you're ready to go to a barbell movement. I recommend using a target if you're new to goblet squats because it'll help you establish a consistent depth with this exercise. So we're gonna grab our dumbbell and we're gonna get it nice and close to our chest and kind of just lock it in with the elbows. From there, we're gonna look straight ahead, just kind of keep your eyesight glanced up a little bit, and we're gonna allow those knees to come out towards the tip of our toes as much as we can and keep our chest as upright as we can. So once my weight is locked in at my chest, I'm gonna take in a nice big inhale and I'm gonna hold that inhale in until I'm almost back up to stand from my squat. So basically it's gonna look like this. We're gonna take in that inhale, tap the butt or get as close to the target as you can. Exhales, I'm getting close to the top of my stance. The next exercise we're gonna do that is a more advanced lift, in my opinion, is a barbell staggered stance Romanian deadlift. I've mentioned Romanian deadlifts and stagger stance deadlifts in so many videos of mine because they are truly one of my favorite ways to grow my hamstrings and my glutes. For years, I didn't even go to a gym to use like a lying leg curl or a seated leg curl because I'm in my own private gym. So I don't have those things here. I only have free weights for the most part, except for some cables now. So I really swear by these because I have seen so much glute and hamstring development in the last few years, and I owe it all to these babies because otherwise I don't really have anything to do for my hamstrings. So when I'm doing this exercise, I want to make sure that my back leg isn't too far back or it might start to feel a little off center. Basically, you can experiment to see how far you need your back leg in relation to your front leg and just do a few practice rounds with just the bar or just body weight to see where you feel the most balanced when you're doing this exercise. Once you figure that part out, you're just going to keep a slight bend in both knees, specifically the back knee. From there, we're gonna drag the barbell down the front of our thighs until we can literally not stretch our hamstrings anymore. And then we're going to pull the bar back up the front of our thighs, coming all the way to stand, still keeping that slight bend in that back leg. I found that for me, that little slight anterior pelvic tilt in my hips and then pushing up towards that crack behind me helps me feel all of this stretch right in through there. And then I'm able to get a big contraction as I pull all the way up and back. Okay, next you guys are gonna do dumbbell Romanian deadlifts to work those hamstrings and the glutes. This is a great way to learn Romanian deadlifts with lighter loads and less risk of injury, but you could also really load these guys up once you get comfortable with the movement. And this is something I still do to this day. So unlike the squat we just did where we had a lot of bend in our knees and we let our knees come forward towards the tip of our toes, we're gonna have a lot less knee bend and we're gonna be focusing more on the bending at the hip. So to get started with this one, I would recommend lighter weights. You're gonna choose 2 dumbbells, maybe between like 5 to 15 pounds, and we're gonna grab those in the hands. Your feet are gonna be about hip width apart, and I just like to place the weights right on the outer portion of the front of my thigh. From there, we're gonna roll our shoulders back and just slightly puff that chest out so that we're not rounded forward like this. That is gonna be what causes some lower back pain while you're doing this movement. From there, I'm gonna give my knees a soft bend, and then I'm gonna think about pushing my hips back towards the room behind me as I drag my hands down my thighs and just continue that path downward until I'm right about a few inches from my knee. Some people can go lower than this, but this is about the flexibility I have in my hamstrings. I'm just gonna reverse it, start to push my hips forward, straighten my legs, and keep those weights nice and close to my body. All right, guys, next we have our barbell hip thrust. This is basically a staple in any glute focused day or semi-glute focused day. I do consider the barbell hip thrust a more advanced movement, but the good news is if you practice your dumbbell hip thrust for about 2 to 4 weeks and you work on the form, the hinge, and feeling it predominantly in your glutes, then you will have no trouble jumping to this rather quickly, probably more quick than I would say a Romanian deadlift or even a barbell back squat. 2 of the most important things for me with hip thrust is that if you're using these for glute growth, you need to add in the pause at the top like I'm doing right here. The second thing is that you want to make sure you're not going too heavy. I do believe in heavier hip thrust and going in those lower rep ranges with heavier weights, but I think if your predominant goal is glute growth, then it's better to do higher rep ranges, think more between like 10 to 15 or even 15 to 20 with that little pause, of course, but with lighter loads that you're able to control and still feel in your glutes. Because I don't know if you guys have been there, but if you're doing those heavier loads, you honestly can't even feel it in your glutes sometimes because you're just struggling so hard to get the weight up or hold that contraction at the top. For my beginners, we're gonna work on the dumbbell hip thrust, which is a great way to practice your form before you add a lot more load to it with your barbell hip thrust. So let's go over the form without any weight added onto us because it's gonna be the exact same once we add any amount of load on. So I have a hip thrusting bench, which is awesome. Shout out Brett Contreras. But if you don't have that, it's perfectly fine. You could use a bench and a Smith machine at the gym, a bench and a barbell, whatever you have at your disposal. Whatever bench you're using, you're gonna wanna make sure that you get the bottom part of your shoulder blade along the edge of the bench. For the lower back, sometimes I start with it nice and close to the bench and then it comes out a little bit as I get into the movement. But as long as my shoulder blades stay on the edge, then I find that I'm in a pretty good position and I won't feel pain in my lower back. From there, our feet are gonna be about hip width apart and we have to find a distance that works for us. Everyone's gonna be different depending on your limb length, but we wanna set up so that when we're at the top of our hip thrust, our knees are almost directly on top of our heels. 2 of the best ways to figure this out is 1, to have someone in person to help you with your form, or 2, take a video of yourself and then adjust your form from there. But I found that after you do that position a few times, it just kind of comes naturally. So for me, I really don't even have to think about it anymore. I just know what feels right when I set my feet up. From there, you want to think about driving your feet down through the ground to help scoop your hips up and get them in line with your knees and your shoulders. So this is what a full lockout at the top of a hip thrust will look like for most people. When I'm at the top, I like to just give a nice pause and think about like squishing a quarter in between my butt cheeks and kind of squeezing my glutes together. From there, I'm still keeping my chin tucked. I'm gonna take in that big inhale as I come down and then exhale and redo that whole process. So when we add a dumbbell to this, we're just gonna grab our dumbbell, get it right on top of our pelvis. You could always set a pad down if this is hurting your pelvis area. We're gonna pull those feet in to where they need to be. Chin is tucked, eyesight's looking straight ahead. And then we're just gonna drive those feet down, bring the hips in line with the knees and the shoulders, squeeze those butt cheeks together. In my opinion, no leg day is complete until we target that upper booty shelf area or that glute medius. One of my favorite ways to do that recently is with cable leg abductions. To complete this exercise, you guys are gonna need to purchase these ankle straps because most gyms do not carry them, but they are relatively cheap on Amazon, and I will include the link to the ones that I purchased below in the description for you. To do this exercise, we're gonna wanna strap in the outside leg to our cable here, and I typically will go relatively light with this exercise to start because it does get hard really quick. And then from there, I'm just gonna kind of line my back foot up with the cable here. So it's like a straight line from the cable to my back foot. I'm just gonna give a slight bend forward in this front leg. So I have a slight bend forward in this hip here, but a straight hip on this back side. I'm gonna lean forward and I wanna make sure that I turn my back foot inward. So my back toes are slanted and pointed towards the inside of my rack or towards my cable. From there, I'm gonna keep that inward turn of my foot, let my leg come into the cable, and then I'm gonna drive my foot slightly up and back. I specifically like to think about driving my heel back and out to the side here. So notice I'm not coming all the way out directly to the side. I am just gonna be slightly
slightly back from there, but I'm keeping that inward turn. So we're letting that big stretch happen by letting our foot come as close to the cable as we can, and then we're driving out from there, and we should feel it in through this area of the booty. I also like to really make sure that as I'm driving that heel back, that I'm just holding this exercise for about 1 to 2 seconds, feeling that contraction before I go in for that big stretch again. Now for my beginners, we're gonna be using a dumbbell instead of the cable for these leg abductions to hit that glute med and to better create that upper booty shelf. So you wanna just grab onto something stable. For me, it's gonna be my squat rack. We're gonna start with a slight bend in the non-working leg, and I'm gonna place my weight on the outside of my thigh. From there, we're just going to tilt that toe inward towards the inside of my rack or the cable machine, whatever you're using. And we're gonna bring that foot behind the non-working leg and then drive that knee open and the legs open, working in through this area. To finish off this leg day, we're gonna do some calf raises. For my calf raises, I like to set up a 45-pound bumper plate next to a cable or a squat rack, or just something stable that I could hold on to. With one hand, I'm gonna hold on to the squat rack, and the other hand, I'm gonna grab my dumbbell. And again, you could load this up as much or as little as you need to. From there, I'm gonna get the balls of my feet on top of my bumper plate, and then I'm just going to allow my heels to come as close to the ground as I can, getting a big stretch in my calf. And then I'm gonna drive down through the balls of my feet and lift myself as high as I can and squeeze those calf muscles. I'm gonna go down again, stretch the calf as much as I can, come all the way up, squeeze for a nice 1 to 2 second pause, and then just keep repeating that process. If you're a beginner that wants to incorporate more machine work into your routines, here's a video that will teach you how to master machines like the leg press. For my more advanced lifters, this video right here will teach you my favorite technique to increase the intensity of your workouts and possibly increase your muscle gains. Thank you guys for watching, and I will hopefully see you on the next video. Take care.